Hello, and welcome to Fearless Authenticity with me, Jeanne Sparrow. This is my podcast on finding our success in the gift of who we truly are. These are conversations with people who have walked the walk, talked the talk, and know what fearless authenticity looks like in their own lives. And it's always my hope that it serves as an inspiration for all of us to find more ways to use our unique gifts, pursue our passions, and make our dreams come true by engaging with each other and the world in the way that we were created to serve. Now, as I always say, I hope it gets deep because that's where we find the good stuff, but don't get it twisted. It is also about the fun of life, because if it ain't fun, it ain't worth doing. And with that, I introduce my guest today for us to be brave, be free, and be you together. My guest is a writer, a speaker, a mental health advocate, and the only child of legendary comedian and actor, one of the original kings of comedy, Bernie Mac. She holds degrees in psychology and mental health counseling and worked in social service before joining her father's business team and later becoming an executive at his foundation. Through her work there, she found her gift for public speaking and has now spoken at events and conferences and appeared on major networks across the nation, addressing topics like women's empowerment, Sarcoidosis awareness, which I can never say right, overcoming depression, and more. Her writing has also been featured in national publications like Ebony and Medium, and her latest project, Bernie's Daughter Podcast, preserves and continues her father's legacy of laughter and inspiration. She's a proud mother to her daughter, Jasmine, and I am honored to welcome somebody who I remember when she was a teenager, just coming up in this world, the one and only Je'Niece McCullough. Welcome to the Fearless Authenticity Podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Girl.
Oh my gosh. Wait, that bio sounded really good. I was looking around like, oh, who is she?
Girl, listen, you know, I learned from your father and his contemporaries on how to bring somebody on to a show. Listen, that's how you set people up.
That sure is. That was like, boom. All right.
There we go. Now, I got to tell you, Je'Niece, you were on my original list of the first people I wanted to have on my podcast. And here's the reason why, because your father was such an inspiration to me. And I know you hear this over and over again, especially now that you've started the podcast, but not just to me, but like literally, had I not met your dad when I did, I wouldn't be talking about fearless authenticity now. Like the seeds of my business now, with him and other people who have guided me along the way. But and it's funny because your dad wasn't like a mentor to me, but he was always there with something to say at very pivotal moments in my life and pushed me to do some things that I don't think I would have ever taken a chance on.
Yeah.
And when I first started this podcast a few years ago, I was like, I got to talk to Je'Niece. And I remembered that there was something I realized through social, you were going through some stuff at the time. And so I was like, you know what, when the time is right, we're going to talk. And I believe that time is now.
And here we are. Oh my gosh. I love it. I love it.
I'm glad that you do, sis. I am so glad because listen, I am forever thankful for those days and for your father.
Yeah.
So since we are starting off with your daddy, let's get the podcast going because that's your biggest, latest thing.
Yes.
You launched it on his recent birthday.
Yeah.
Talk to me about the experience so far. Tell me what it's been like, what you intended and how it's turning out, and what you've learned from all the people you've talked to, either about your dad or about life or whatever.
Oh my gosh. So this has just been an incredible ride thus far. And I'm gobsmacked almost every day because this is nothing that I would have ever imagined I'd be doing. Like everybody who knows me, their response has been, it's about time. But you know how other people can sometimes see us better than we see ourselves. And I always tell people, I'm like Gina, I'll be back here singing in the background, like leave me back here. I never wanted to be, front and center. And that was never my thing. Writing's my jam. And that's some people will say, you know, well, that's being in the forefront, but that's a little different for me. It feels different because I can write, they're my words, and I can still chill in the cut. But being front and center to do this is completely different. And also, there's been that added fight that I've always had with being seen as just Bernie Mac's daughter. That's been a huge journey in and of itself. But since this has started, it's kind of just like how you said, you know, you wanted me on the podcast, but I was going through, you know, life was lifing and it was like, okay, it's not the time, but when the time is right, I feel like that's what this podcast has been. Again, I had no intentions of doing this. And my producer called me up one day, and we've known each other, you know, for years and seen each other here and there. And I tell her, like, we laugh about this all the time because I'm like, I was just at home doing laundry, being a mama, doing, you know, and she called me and said, okay, I follow you. I think you're so talented. You're smart. You have a lot of things to say. And I know you're going to think I'm crazy, but I really think you should do a podcast. And I think it should be about your dad because, you know, you talk about these things and you have this unique perspective. And, you know, she's going on and on. And I remember she goes, you know, so just think about it for a couple of days and then you just let me know what it is. And without hesitation, I said, no, I don't need to think about it. I'm going to tell you yes.
Yes, I
Yeah.
love that. What made you say yes? Because you've talked about this a lot on your social media, and I'm gonna get to that part and something else you brought up just now. But what got you to the point that got you to say yes to that, to step out from the behind the scenes in the background singing, to step to that role in the front?
It's, you know, I think it's just been, I've been at war with myself for a very long time. And I think I just tuckered myself out where I was like, I don't have any more fight, you know, in me, not to fight against myself. There's been all these things that life just keeps showing me, like, this is who you are. This is what you're supposed to be doing. This is where you're supposed to be going. And instead of me, you know, fighting, going, no, 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 I just say, you know what? And I think it happened around last year. I took my daughter to New York for her birthday. And I don't know, it was something about that trip. It was her sweet 16, you know, and it was just, you know, watching her and looking at her and remembering what it was like to be, you know, 16 and full of hope. And I just kind of walked away like, I've just been fighting against myself and with my life for so long. I don't want to do that anymore. And I remember, like, when we went to sleep the night of her birthday, I said, okay, God, you know, spirit, source, whatever you want to call it, take me wherever I'm supposed to go. I'm moving out of the way. Wherever it is I'm supposed to be going, I'll do it. And I'm not going to keep saying, you know, I don't want this, I don't want that. Because whenever people would mention, like, but you should do this, I'd always go, I don't want to do that. And I just said, I'm not going to say that anymore. If it's what I'm supposed to do, if it's meant for me, then okay. And so when my producer called me, and she didn't say anything that I haven't heard multiple times before, but like I said, I was like, nope, you said you're not going to say you don't want to do it. So when she said it, I said, okay.
I'm glad you did.
Me too.
I'm really glad you did, because one of the things, and this was actually going to be a question, you already brought it up about, you know, when you grow up, especially with a parent who is larger than life, which is what your father was for so many of us, not just here in Chicago, but clearly, you know, in the comedy world, in the acting world, for Black folks, you know, what have you. I have to imagine that it is or was challenging for you to find a space in the sunshine outside of his shadow.
Yeah.
How did you feel? And especially because, like, for instance, you know, even my reference when I introduced you, like, I remember I met your father when you were, I think, just graduating from high school and headed down to Xavier.
Yep.
And your life was such a big part of his stand-up that there's also that part of it, right? Because he's talking about something really relatable as parenting, but it's about this real human being.
Yep.
So talk to me about how you felt about all of that, especially as a teenager growing up, How did it impact how you expressed yourself, found yourself, and became an individual apart from Bernie?
Oh, wow, that's such a good question. It First of all, it's all I've ever known. Even I tell people all the time, there's never been a time in my life where I have not been known as my father's daughter, even before he became famous. In the neighborhood, they used to call him Black. And I remember as a kid, when I'd walk to the neighborhood store, the guys would be on the playground, playing basketball, and that's Black's daughter over there. There's never been a time. I have always been my father's daughter. That aspect has never bothered me. It was always other people and how I just simply got reduced to just being his daughter, as if I had nothing else to offer on my own. And it's weird because people did one or two things. It was either they hated me for it because of their own projections of, oh, she thinks she's all this. Oh, you have all this and that. And really at the time, he didn't become famous until I was, older. We didn't have half the stuff that people thought we had. Or people would do this other thing where they would kind of like diminish me because it was like, well, if you're Bernie Mac's daughter, how come all you have is this? Well, how come you don't have it? How come you're not famous? How come you're not on stage? And it was very weird. And it was difficult to navigate because I was such a Pollyanna when I was younger. All I wanted was just to love everybody and everybody to love me. And that was very difficult to accept, that people wouldn't like me. Not so much that people wouldn't like me, is that they wouldn't like me for what I felt was a legitimate reason. Like, you hate me just because of who? Like, I had no say in the matter of who my father is. Like, how come you're not mad at my mama? She the one that procreated with him. Like, why you mad at me?
Girl, listen, and here's the thing that just dawned on me too. This recent thing about the Nepo babies and
Yes.
things like that, where, children of actors or other famous people, when they become famous, it's like, oh, you don't deserve that either. So it's like, it's damned if you do, damned if you don't.
Yeah.
And what was your path like, though, navigating all that? Because that is extra, especially as a young person trying to find because it's hard enough trying to find your own way in life, period. Right. Yes. And then you have this other extra thing you're navigating. Because, I mean, clearly, and I understand what you mean about being your father's daughter everywhere you go. Because, to some people in my home, I'm still Spro's baby. You Alan daughter. You know what I mean? What you doing now, baby? That kind of thing, which is endearing once you've already established yourself, but it can be confusing when you're younger. So what was that path like for you?
A lot of self-doubt, because I remember I would get so upset and I intentionally chose Xavier because no one that I knew went to Xavier. And I was like, I'm going to go away where no one knows me and I can just be Je'Niece and I can, figure out, do my thing. And somehow it still came out that I was Bernie Mac's daughter. And it was so crazy at that time because the people that I had become friends with, they didn't know. Like, I didn't put any pictures of my dad up. Like, I never told him. And I remember I think it was homecoming weekend. We had gone to Popeyes because Popeyes in the world.
Girl. And listen, and Popeyes don't taste the same anywhere outside of Southwest and South Louisiana.
Nowhere else. I don't care what you do, where you go. That Popeyes
is close, but not quite.
Right, exactly. And I remember this guy walked up to us and he goes, "You're Bernie Mac's daughter, right?" And I instantly was like, oh no, they found me. Oh no. And all of my friends started laughing and they were like, yeah, right. Like, if you were Bernie Mac's daughter, you would actually go here. Come on now. And I'm laughing with them like, girl, ain't that crazy? Right. But on the inside, I'm like, ooh, no. And it just followed me. And it was difficult to navigate because I would get so angry with people for reducing me to Bernie Mac's daughter. And I would be like, I'm Je'Niece. But if you asked me at that time, who is Je'Niece? I wouldn't have had an answer. I'd have been just staring at you like, well, I am Bernie Mac's daughter. So I'm trying to figure out who Je'Niece is right now. And if you would just give me a minute, like, so again, that's part of that warring with myself. But because, I have this external thing going on with people, doing that, I'm projecting that on to them and taking that to mean, well, I really must not be that. I must not be that. Like, if everybody is just saying I'm just Bernie Mac's daughter, then that shouldn't I be more than just Bernie Mac's daughter? Like, so it just, it was difficult. And I knew I had things that I liked to do. I knew I had, gifts. I knew I was like, if you asked me who I was just in terms of friends, I could tell you, I know I'm a kind person. I know I'm a good friend. I know I'm that. But in my mind, those weren't good enough. I always had this I'm not good enough feeling. And it wasn't even so much that I never wanted to be, like my dad. I never wanted to be in the spotlight. So it was never this thing of feeling like I had to achieve, greatness in that sense. It just was always this, no matter what I did, it wasn't good enough.
And it was coming from inside, sounds
It
like.
was absolutely coming from inside. Absolutely. And because it was coming from inside, I didn't know how to receive the outside projections of other people. I internalized the projections and it just fed my own internal angst. And it's even after he died, I still struggled with that. And I was 30 when he died and I still struggled with that. But at that point now, I'm a mom and my marriage was ending at that time as well. So now I'm feeling like, okay, I'm Bernie Mac's daughter, Jasmine's mama, and now I have a failed marriage. I failed at this, this thing. And now that was just a whole nother spiral in addition to the grief, because with my dad gone now, what am I supposed to do? Who am I supposed to be? And I still fought against being Bernie Mac's daughter. Like when we would get, my mom and I would get calls to talk about my dad. I was happy to talk about my dad. But then when it would go, well, we have Bernie Mac's daughter, I'd be like, no. But it's still, again, I still didn't know that I was good enough as I was. And it really has only been in my 40s. Like what am I, 40s? Am I 45 or 46? How old am I? Oh God. Oh,
don't make me look it up. I think you're 45 though. I think you're about to be 46.
No, I think I am 46.
Are you 46?
Did I just turn 46?
What year were you born, dear?
I was born in 78. Oh, this is
so yes, you're 45.
Okay.
Your birthday's, I know your birthday's in January.
Yes, I'm 45. Okay,
so
yes.
You're about to be 46.
45. Thank you.
This happens. Can I tell you something? This is the age at which it happens. That's why I'm tickled. Because you go, wait, how old am I? And then when you turn 50, you'll be saying you're 50, and then you're like, wait a minute, I'm older than 50. Hold up, wait, how old am I? And then you have to do the math, and then you start repeating your age so you can remember it.
Yes, listen. I'm hitting all of those middle age perimenopause milestones. I had my first hot flash this summer, and I was like, "Oh my God, it has begun." Oh, okay, like yeah,
girl, it's an experience. Okay,
yes, it is.
Now here's something you bring up though that I find very interesting that I talk a lot about in Fearless Authenticity, especially with women. Because, I talk about the concept and the idea that where we find our success is in who we truly are. But the reality is that it's a journey and it's a continuous journey to finding who you are. And I think a lot of times, and I'm not saying it doesn't happen to men because I'm sure it does. I just think that for women, because of our societal roles as mothers, wives, partners, supporters, all of these different things, caregivers, and daughters to our parents, particularly our fathers, sometimes we get so identified with the roles that we lose sight of ourselves. So the question to me is, especially now that you are at this age and have gone through this method of discovery, especially during a time of loss, what is it that helped you get to this point? What has that process been like? What would you tell somebody who has gotten so lost in their role or whatever those roles are that they don't remember who they are and what they're here to do other than that role? What advice would you give them?
First things first, please give yourself the same care and grace that you so abundantly give everyone else. Because I think a lot of times what we do when we, get lost, we internalize it and then we rage against our own selves. And it's like, I should be doing better than this. Why am I not handling like this? Oh my gosh, I'm so weak. I'm so, it's no, you're not. You're just human and it's okay. So, above all else, give yourself grace. If I had to go back and do it all over again, which, oh gosh, please never let me have to. But if I did, I would absolutely be as gentle with myself as I am with my daughter and everybody that I love and everybody I come across, because that same compassion, that same grace, that same love that I give to everyone else, I did not give to myself. So above all else, please do that. And then two, also don't take yourself so seriously. I think, that's one of the things my dad used to always try to ingrain in me. And I remember, it's my dad. So you know how he said, he was like, you an intelligent Mo. Like, you too intelligent for your own good. Would you just relax? Take it easy. Laugh. Sit down. And as I've gotten older, as I've gone through this, I hear those words and I chuckle to myself because he was right. Don't get me wrong. There's some serious issues going on in life. There's serious issues that we will face. But I think the human tendency is that we make things a whole lot more than what they actually are. We experience these things, and because of our own discomfort, and because I think a lot of the conditioning that we get to where, this idea that life is supposed to look, this way, especially once you reach a certain point, we are like, oh my God, well, what does this mean if I haven't reached this milestone, if I haven't done this thing, if I don't look like this, if I don't have this, what does it mean? And it just means you're not human. It just means you don't have it. Like, it doesn't have to mean more than that. And again, if I had to do it all over again, those are the two things that I absolutely would do. And then be flexible, because life is not this linear path. It is not, you start at point A and you go to point Z all in these, steps. Oh, then you hit this step and then you hit this step. No, life is all over the place. It winds, it twists and turns, and there'll be, plot twists that you never saw coming. There's all kinds of things happening. And it doesn't mean that you're failing. It doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. It doesn't mean that you're not good enough. It just means that that's life. And you have to just, learn how to be flexible. Okay. I thought, because that was a big thing for me. I thought by 30 that life was going to look a certain way. And especially at the point that my dad died, life was starting to look up. Like, I was starting to feel really excited, like, oh, I'm on my way. These things are going to happen. Oh my gosh. And then marriage ends, dad dies. And that, my dad's death impacted my relationship with my mom. And then that changed, and I'm an only child, and now I'm walking around like, I've lost two parents. Like, what happened? I don't know what. And it was very difficult for me to get past. This isn't what my life is supposed to look like. My life, like, I was supposed to do this. I did all the things that I was supposed to do. I went to school. I treat people right. I was checking all these checklists. And I'm like, life doesn't look like this, and life really isn't obligated to look the way that we tell ourselves it's supposed to look. So, yeah.
Indeed, my sweet. You have said a mouthful with that. And, one of the things that I have always appreciated about you in following you on social media, and I see so much of your father in you, by the way, in spirit.
Yeah.
Because you're your own person. And I want to make sure, because I'm sure how much you get of that Bernie's daughter and how much you're like your dad, but you do remind me of him in his spirit and the way you carried forward. And I'm so glad that you've chosen to let his spirit also speak through you and continue that legacy in your way. But one of the ways that I think you really embody your father is in your transparency and how you share your life on social media. When you finally started opening up and really talking about not only your grief around your father, not only your own personal struggles, even and your path as a mother, like your stories about,
My fizzle dizzle, yeah.
your fizzle dizzle girl, hilarious. And moving, like all of those different things are such a beautiful, and I remember going the first time I started seeing them, I was like, okay, Je'Niece. I was like, look at my girl. What did it take for you to get to that point with that? Because you've also talked about your hesitance about sharing your own mental health struggles, and even with your background in mental health counseling, working with substance use disorder folks, working in the criminal courts in Orleans Parish, like you've seen some things.
Yes, I have.
and you are clearly aware of it as a mental health professional. But yet at the same time you were, and I just thought that was such a beautiful moment. One of the first videos I saw, you were like, I know I have to talk about this. I don't want to, but I know I have to. So what made you finally decide, okay, I'm gonna do this, and I'm gonna let it all hang out, and I'm gonna be as real, as fearlessly authentic as I can be?
Yes. It was, so I've always been that person that I want to help people. And I've always been that person that I'm like, I walk so you could run. Like that's always been my mentality. But it got to a point when I was going through, and because healing is not linear. So, they have this point in your healing journey where you're like, I feel good. I'm on my way. I made progress. And then something will happen. You get triggered or something. And then you fall, 15 steps back and you're like, I thought I was healing and now I'm not. And I remember just sitting, and it was all these stirrings, like, that silent voice in your head that's like, you need to talk about this. You need to talk about this. But I would always brush it off like, no. And it got to a point where I couldn't quiet the voices that were saying, you need to talk about it. And I tried to come up with an excuse why I couldn't. But instead of coming up with an excuse why I couldn't help but think, remember how alone you felt when you were going through everything that you were going through. You felt so alone. There's somebody out there, even if it's just one person, that if you say this, it's going to reach them and they are going to know that they're not alone. So I couldn't argue with that. I fixed myself to go, no, but, and I thought about it, and all I could think, like I said, all I just kept thinking about is, remember how you felt. If there's anybody, like I said, if it's just one person that you can help so that they don't feel that way. And I just said, well, okay. Now, posting it, like, even, when I would write it, it's that, I'd write it all out, type it, and then, I hit enter, but I wouldn't hit enter just yet. It was like, whew, the button finger was like, okay, wait, I'll come back to it. Like it looked like that in real time. And then, once you hit enter, you're like, oh my God, oh no, what did I just do? I did it. Okay. Oh. But the responses were always so overwhelmingly positive. And then I would get messages from people like, thank you so much, because this is what I'm going through, and it just happened more and more to where I just said, okay, I still may not completely understand why my life has transpired the way that it did, but it's bigger than me. And we just got to go with it. And so that's what I do.
I am glad you accepted it. Do you feel like you are finally walking in your purpose now? Okay, good. I love that. I love that. Because you have, as many of us do, shift among careers and things like that. And I think there are always times when we doubt if we're doing what we're supposed to be doing, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Was there a time that you chose to do things because you felt the pressure of that you should be doing that,
yes,
or that you were told? And what did you make that choice knowing that it was out of alignment for you?
Yes, I always knew. I always knew. The two things that come to mind, when I was in college, I went to Xavier convinced I was going to become a neurosurgeon. because my aunt had given me a copy of Ben Carson's book, Gifted Hands, when I was 8. And I was just like, oh my gosh, this is what I have to do. And I think by midterms freshman year, I knew, no, this is not it. But I was too afraid to tell my dad that I changed my mind. Because, he may be Bernie Mac and funny guy to y'all, but
he was still your daddy.
He was a big black man. And hold on, what you plan on doing with my money? Like, so I was like, okay, no. So I stayed a biology pre-med major, and I kept trying to stay on the track to go to med school until the end of my junior year.
For 3 whole years.
For 3 years, and of course, now it's junior year. You change your major now. Like, what are you doing, baby? What is we doing?
You on a 5-6 year plan at that point.
Yes. But I hustled and I made it out in 4.5.
What?
I switched my major to psychology, got out in 4.5.
Well, that's a little overlap too. And what was the other example of that? You said,
and then the other example is when he died. I put so much pressure on myself to, do his legacy and just continue his legacy. And I became vice president of his foundation, the Bernie Mac Foundation. Not nonprofits, that's just not my gift. It's not. There's a whole lot that goes into behind the scenes of running a nonprofit. And I was miserable doing it. But I put all this pressure on myself that, no, you are his only child. If you don't continue his legacy, who's going to do it? Like, you have to keep doing it. And I would not let it go. And he came to me in a dream and he was like, Boops, what are you doing? He said, I'm going to try not to cry.
You could cry on this show because I'm gonna cry right with you, girl. Because he's my heart. So like literally, it's welling up already. Let's do it, girl. Let's do it.
But he said to me, you have lived your whole life doing what you think everybody else wants you to do. Even me. He said, I'm sorry for putting that on you. But now it's time for you to do what you want to do.
Girl, I'm just
oh my gosh. I
said, ma'am, listen. We gonna cry together and we gonna laugh at the same time because that's what your daddy will want.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, girl, that is so beautiful. When those messages come from the other side.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I remember I just woke up with like tears streaming down my face. And I still was kind of like, but, and I just said, no, he's right. This isn't it. And the other thing he said, you're so worried about, my legacy. He was like, you are my legacy. Jasmine is my legacy. And that's when I just said, okay, this isn't it. I absolutely want to help people. And I know that is part of my purpose, to help people. But I was like, I can't do it this way. I've got to find my own way to do it. And so, yeah.
That is so beautiful. And it is amazing the gifts that are shared with us when we are open to them, right? Because chances are you had that dream because you were finally ready to hear that particular message, period. Because it was also, the call was also coming from inside the house as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that reference. I love it.
So now tell me something, because a lot of your experiences have been, because at one point in time you did work for your father when you were younger, right? And is it true that you said you would never work for him again?
Listen.
And then you went back to work for him as an adult?
No, I gotta say it how he was saying, listen. Okay. So
some of a bit,
man. So he made me. I was one of the original macaronis when he did his Who You With tour. And at the time, he had me doing like accounting for him. And I swore, because the expectation he placed on me, first of all, I will never forget the moment that I said I would never work for him again. It was during a rehearsal before like the first show. And he cussed us out so badly during the rehearsal. Like, y'all are fucking up. My name on, like, it was terrible. But then he looks at me and goes, and you the worst one. You letting them smoke all of you. Now, keep in mind, I'm 14, and these are all professional dancers.
Girl, that is like, classic.
That is Bernard Jeffrey. That ain't Bernie Mae. That's Bernard Jeffrey. Okay, let's get like that.
Girl, classic.
Yes. And I just remember, like, because after every rehearsal, we would both come home. My poor mama, bless Rhonda Hart, to this day, somebody owe her dinner, lunch, something, because I know she was like, oh my gosh, because we both would come home just like piping hot, like, and I'd be like, you need to talk to your husband, and he'd come in, you better get your daughter, like, oh my gosh. And I swore I would never, I was like, never, ever in my life would I ever work with him, for him. Never, never, never. Keep us far away from each other. And when it was right before I got pregnant with my daughter, he was like, listen, I don't want to take you away from what you went to school for, but I need somebody that I can trust on my team. Like, and without hesitation, I remember going, okay, so I'll make more than I'll make in my field ever. I can actually say I like my boss, and not to be entitled, but I'm gonna give a whole lot of perks because I know I know the boss very well. And I was like, you know what? I'm in. And he kept going, I don't want to take you away from what you went to school for. And I remember telling him, my degrees are hanging on the wall. If you'd ever like to see what your money paid for, feel free to come on over and you can go look at them.
And it's not like in entertainment, you're not going to use psychology, because my undergrad degree is in psychology. So please understand that it prepared me very well.
Yes, man.
Very well.
Absolutely. And I think by that point, I was married, like I said, I was about to become a mom. And I think we had just reached a point of understanding in our relationship where he learned to let go. And I think for him too, I think a lot of why he struggled during those, my formative years was because there was so much that he missed. People always talk about, to me and my mom, they're always like, thank you so much for sharing him with us. And thank you so much for your sacrifice. And I'm like, well, you might be able to tell Rhonda, thank you for your sacrifice. But I was the kid. I was the sacrifice. There was a lot that got sacrificed, on the home front for him to become the superstar that everybody knows. And I think for him, as he, when he did get the space to kind of breathe a little bit and look, he's looking at me like, wait, you were just 8 yesterday. Who is this? What is this? And I think he really struggled with that. But by the time I got married, I think he realized, okay, she's grown. I can back off a little bit. And our relationship, we were at that point where now we had an adult parent-child relationship. So working for him was fun, man.
I love that for you, but especially considering, you couldn't have known how soon you would lose him after that. Exactly. So, blessings come in some interesting ways.
Yes, they do.
When it comes to all these different things that you've done, and you've already shared some of your failures, your challenges, your setbacks, have you at this point garnered a system in place for when these challenges come back? Because the thing is, like you said, nothing is linear. It's never a straight line, whether it's healing or progress in your life. Do you feel like you have kind of a coping system that you use that helps you get through those humps now?
Yes. And I feel like I have experienced enough now to know it's not the end of the world. And I don't say that lightly, but back then when those things were happening to me, in my life, those were huge things that I hadn't experienced before. Like when my dad died, I was like, you might as well bury me now. Like, I don't, what am I gonna do now, Lord? Like, I was like, what What am I supposed to do with this? And so now I have a better understanding of life and death, where of course I would grieve, but it wouldn't look the same way. And I have a better understanding of myself and my own strength. I think back then no, not I think, I know. Back then I didn't know my own strength. I didn't know that I could make it through. And now I do. And now I'm not going to sit and say I'm well prepared, because life might be like, haha, you think so? So I will not say that. But I think I'm prepared enough to where I have enough trust, not just in life, but in myself. And that was something I didn't have before.
And how do you face those challenges? Do you have like a thing you do? Like, is it a meditation? Is it a process of things that you could share with people of how you get through those challenges now, especially with where you've been?
Meditation is my friend. It is my friend. It is my friend. But I just love being out in nature. I have to, at some point, I have to get out. Lake Catherine in Palos Park, that is my favorite, absolute favorite spot. If you are looking for me, I'm probably there. Just to be amongst the trees, just to sit, just to walk. I have to. I meditate. And one thing that I know about myself is that I'm very sensitive to other people's energy. So when I'm going through those things, I know now how to find that balance between giving myself the solitude that I need while also inviting people into my space. Because the thing that I would do before is there was no in between. I would either completely isolate, or I would completely, immerse myself in everybody else's stuff. And now I'm taking on everybody else's stuff. So now I've found that balance between, okay, after these messages, we'll be right back. I go, take my time, my solitude, my space and sometimes it's journaling. Sometimes it's just talking out loud. Sometimes it's meditating, but just whatever I need to do in that moment within myself. And then I can come and go, okay, hey guys, so this is what's going on with me, and take in, everybody else's energy. But it's finding that, I have found that balance. And then I am not ashamed to say I have a therapist. So listen, if I need to, I will call her. Listen, this just happened, so I'm going to need to come see you sooner than I thought to. Like, I have no shame in saying that. So,
and I hadn't planned on asking you this, but since you bring it up, I don't know about you, but I have found when I make posts about going to see a therapist or suggesting that if you have a challenge, see some sort of mental health professional. It may not be a therapist per se. It might be a clergy member or somebody else. But I find I get some resistance, especially from our people. And I know that is, I haven't expected it to be as vehement as it is sometimes. Yeah. Like, I had one person say on a post that it was right before Mental Health Day, World Mental Health Day. And I know you post about that as well. Yeah. And stuff. We have that in common. And I had a person respond and say, well, now I'm going to take into question everything else you say and your insights. Like, and it was somebody who used to make a lot of positive comments. And I'm like, you know what? That's your choice. But I was really shocked at the turnaround just because I said, take care of your mental health. Sir, what do you think all this other stuff I've been talking about has been about? Like, literally? But what is your take on that, especially as somebody who practiced in mental health care and is vigilant about your own? What is your hope when it comes to all of our mental health?
It's my hope that we treat it as we treat other things. If I hear a rattling in my car, I'm not going to say, oh, it's nothing. And if I know I can't fix cars, I'm not going to say, oh, I can fix it myself. I'm going to take it into somebody who can fix it. If there's a leak in my pipes in my house, if I don't know how to fix it, I'm not going to go, I should be able to fix that myself. I may try, but I'm going to reach a point eventually where I say, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing. Before I mess this up, let me call a professional. It's my hope that we get to that space with our mental health, because I always say mental health is a physical health issue. I think when it comes to our physical health, we are like, okay, you need to see a doctor. You diabetes. Oh, you need to go, whatever the issue is, we're like, you need to see a doctor. And mental health is something that I don't even want to say compartmentalize. It's kind of, we just plucked and put it off. Oh, that, like, it's a trend. Like, it's so, no, it's not real. That's that hibbity dibbity stuff, y'all be like, but it really is a physical issue, because our mental health impacts everything. Like, I don't even think people realize the link between the mental and the physical. You'll be thinking you have some type of physical ailment, and the whole time, no, it's a psychosomatic issue because of whatever, trauma or underlying mental issues that you have going on. And it's not a shameful thing. Like I tell my daughter, two things for certain: we all gonna die. And I promise you, not a single one of us, when we do, will leave this earth unscathed. Something, something will have happened to every single one of us that has impacted us severely. And that's not a bad thing. We don't need to be ashamed of it. And we certainly don't need to believe that we have all the answers. I think far too often, especially within our community, we treat it as, oh, I should be able to fix that. I should be able to. You just got to be strong. Like, there's not enough strength in the world you can't outstrength, to bypass those issues. So it is my hope that we let all of those societal conditionings go, because it's really just roast and pan syndrome. We don't realize our ancestors, they were in survival mode. They were teaching us based on what they had to do at that time just to survive. But because of the way that we process information, we take it as this is a universal truth that is forever. And, we internalize, this is what it is, this is what it's supposed to be. And we just pass it down as if it's true. And it's like, no, the whole time, grandmama was cutting the ends of the pot roast because her pan was too small. And it's, so I really hope that we can let go of those conditionings without, one, feeling let down by our ancestors, and without internalizing what that is. Like, that whole, well, if what grandmama told me wasn't true, now I just don't know about life now. Now what? Yeah.
You don't have to throw everything out.
Right. Chew the meat, spit out the bones. Like, that's what I hope.
I love that. All right. Last two questions I always ask everybody. The first one is, what's your proudest accomplishment so far? And what do you still dream of doing? So it's a two-parter.
Oh, proudest accomplishment so far is raising my daughter, and not just raising her, but raising her to be a kind, compassionate human being, and without projecting my baggage on her, even in the midst of my grief and depression, because I could have spiraled. I could have been a horrible, parent, not intentionally, but there's so much I could have done in my darker days that I never did. Like, and we were talking before, and she didn't even realize that I was, going through the things that I was going through. And that really could have shown. So I'm really proud that even in the midst of everything that I was going through, I still chose love. I'm patting myself on the back. I'm like, yes.
That's beautiful. Oh my gosh. What do you still dream of doing?
What do I still dream of doing? Traveling the world more. That is, I hope to, granted she's going to be 17, but I hope to take her around the world just to see more of the world. We've gone and traveled, but I really want to do, like, more extended travel. Like, there's a woman I follow, Demetria Lucas.
Yes.
Yeah, listen, I love me some Demetria.
Me too.
Yes, her hashtag see some world.
Yes.
When I see her, like, she's been in Ghana, Mozambique, South Africa, like she's been when I see that, I am like, oh my gosh, yes, I want that. Yeah, that's what I want to do.
Wonderful. And then my final question I ask everyone, Je'Niece, when do you feel that you are at your best, truest, most authentic version of you?
Oh my gosh. I feel I am at my best, truest, most authentic me. First of all, when I've had a full night's sleep.
Yes.
If I have not had my full 8 hours, nah, no. But when I am when I am being when I'm with the people that I love, most especially with my daughter, I always tell people I've been fortunate enough to have two soulmates. My dad was one, my daughter is my other. And when I am with her, I know I'm home. Oh, yeah.
Oh, ma'am, we have had some moments on this little program today. I knew this conversation would be as heartfelt as it was. Thank you so much for sharing yourself. And thank you for sharing your father in the way that you have chosen to now with Bernie's Daughter podcast. Cannot wait to see what you do with that, with your writing and everything. God bless you, sis. God bless you.
Thank you. Thank you, Jeanne. Thank you.
Thank you, girl. I appreciate you, Je'Niece. The way that you have found the lessons along your path, whether they were the result of things your dad told you that you had to realize later. I know that feeling oh so well. And the ones that you discovered on your own as you raise your own daughter, and the way you share them so generously. Here are a few things that spoke to my heart from my conversation with Je'Niece. First of all, y'all know how I am about self-care. I loved how Je'Niece clarified, and I love this turn of phrase, how we rage against ourselves when we judge ourselves, because that's exactly what it is. It is anger at ourselves just for being human and not giving ourselves the grace abundantly the way we do to others, the care that we give to others. And also the need to ask for help, professional or otherwise, the same way we would do with anything else. I mean, we're not going to fix our fuse box if we're not electricians. We might try and shock ourselves, but we're going to call a professional to do that kind of stuff. And the same thing is true for our health, and that mental health is the same as our physical health. I love how she shared Bernie's wisdom that he always tried to drum into her about letting things be what they are, not reading more into it, overusing our brain power, our intelligence, and blowing things out of proportion, because that's when we start to take ourselves a little too seriously. I think if we also think about all of the things that have happened since the beginning of the year, and how some of these conversations have gone online, that is exactly what Bernie was talking about, not taking ourselves too seriously. I also love the power of flexibility, because I think we all believe that life is this linear path. I mean, that's what school teaches us, right? But understanding that there will be twists in the road, and that there are plot twists that we never see coming as we turn the bend. So thank you, Je'Niece, for your honesty, for your thoughtfulness. And also, please check out her Bernie's Daughters podcast. Love it, love it, love it. And you know what? I appreciate you, my Fearless Authenticity listeners, for your attention, your support. I would not do this without you, and I could not do it without my amazing production team. Thank you to Lisa E., Vicky, Wayne, and Jess for your hard work every single week. I hope that you will rate, review, download, subscribe, share this episode everywhere you get your podcast, including on YouTube, because it really does help to expand our reach and make an impact. And I would also be honored if you joined my community. I have a newsletter that I put out every month. I hope you will sign up for that at fearlessauthenticity.com. Please follow me on social media at Ms. Jeanne Sparrow on YouTube, where you'll find this podcast. Also on Facebook and TikTok at that handle. And on Instagram and Twitter, you can find me at JM Sparrow. I'm also planning to roll out some exclusive content, both from the pod and behind the scenes, some things you haven't seen that's coming in the spring. So stay tuned for details. The best way to stay tuned is by getting that newsletter. This has been Fearless Authenticity with me, Jeanne Sparrow. I'll see you again soon. Thank you.